I think we're all aware of the global challenges that we all faced with in the world in terms of the energy industry, and we've got a guest this morning who is a renowned leader in this area, in simulation, and how simulation can play a leading role in the energy industry. Bruce Dale is a long-time Abacus user. I think he started using Abacus, he said to me, back in the early 1980s, so over 30 years ago. And Bruce heads up the subsurface section in ExxonMobil, where he's the chief engineer. And he has held a variety of technical and management positions in R&D at ExxonMobil. He studied at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and got degrees in engineering mechanics for bachelor's and master's. So please join me in welcoming Bruce Dale to the stage.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Colin, for that generous introduction. I'm excited to speak to this group today, having such a talented group of engineers, scientists, business professionals, and students. My talk will focus on what we at ExxonMobil see as the great global energy challenge in the 21st century. Energy is the engine for economic growth, a catalyst for human achievement. The global energy challenge entails exploring, developing, producing, and delivering energy to impact the lives of people all around the world, and doing so in a safe, secure, and environmentally responsible way. The sources and supplies of energy have evolved rapidly over the last century, first fueling industrialization and urbanization of cities, and more recently, the globalization of the world marketplace, all of which has led to population growth and improvements in living standards. In the last decade, natural gas from unconventional resources, such as shale, emerged as an attractive energy source due to their great natural abundance and efficiency as clean-burning fuels. The advent of horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing reshaped the energy landscape and significantly improved the energy self-sufficiency of North America, and offers the potential for doing so elsewhere around the globe. ExxonMobil has a long history of building on the fundamentals, sciences and engineering, and due to leadership with a long-standing commitment to technology and innovation. Advanced simulation technologies and 3D visualization increasingly provide a vital role in the success of the energy industry, and include such capabilities as finite element analysis, computational fluid dynamics, and particle flow mechanics. This presentation highlights energy in the 21st century, and I'll describe a collaborative relationship that ExxonMobil undertook with SIMULIA to develop new fundamental improvements in simulation to address key issues in drilling, completion, and production challenges in the upstream oil and gas industry. If we could see energy, what would we see? A house, a car, lights at night, heat in the winter, a refrigerator to keep food fresh, a stove for cooking, a better education, a good job, modern health care, wireless communications, technology and innovation. The freedom to focus on one's daily activities on something more than just mere subsistence. These are the many benefits of modern energy. During the past century, growth in the availability and use of modern energy and modern fuels, including electricity, radically enhanced the lives of billions of people. The progress enabled by modern energy has not reached everyone. Some nations have prospered more than others, reflecting in part the transition to modern energy coupled with modern technologies. As recently as 1990, 50% of the world's energy was consumed by only 20% of its population. Even today, some 80 years after Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared that electricity is no longer a luxury, 1 in 5 people on this earth still do not have access to energy, or electricity rather, and even more lack modern cooking fuels. The benefits of modern technology and energy are self-evident, especially for those who are not just now getting access. To help the billions of people reach the middle class and for living standards to rise, the question always remains: how to expand the benefits of modern technology and energy while protecting the environment? Answers to that question continue to be found through practical choices driven by human ingenuity. The good news is that practical options do exist to meet people's needs for reliable, affordable energy as they continue to expand. Energy is vital to our everyday lives. So if we could see energy, what would we see?
If we could see energy, what would we see? The billions of gallons of fuel that get us to work. We'd see all the electricity flowing through the devices that connect us and teach us. We'd see that almost 100% of medical plastics are made from oil and natural gas. And an industry that supports almost 10 million American jobs. Life takes energy. And no one applies more technology to produce American energy and refine it more efficiently than ExxonMobil. Because using energy responsibly has never been more important. Energy lives here.
So it's clear that the need for energy is universal, as a foundation for advancement and a gateway to opportunity. Energy plays a fundamental role in powering economies, enabling modern life, and supporting progress and development. The outline for my talk today will address the following topics: the outlook for energy with a view to 2040, the increasing importance of natural gas as a primary fuel, some important upstream technical challenge in the subsurface, and finally, a global perspective on energy. So let's begin this journey together and learn about energy in the 21st century and how building on the fundamentals presents a clearer, more certain path for all of us. It's important to understand the links between population growth, economic progress, and the amount and type of energy used around the world. At ExxonMobil, for more than 50 years, we have looked to the future of energy to help guide our business strategies and investments for meeting global demand. Every year, a group of ExxonMobil analysts and economists in our corporate strategic planning organization analyze volumes of data from over 100 countries in regards to energy demand sectors, fuel types, emerging technologies, government policies, trade patterns and flows, among others. This information serves as the foundation for our outlook for energy, which is a report that we produce each year and examines the trends in the type of energy that we anticipate the world will need based on what we need to know in terms of energy usage and energy supplies. The outlook is an important guide for our business decisions and investments, but we share it freely. We think others need to understand the same level of understanding that we have in promoting transparency. But before we continue, let's take a quick energy quiz.
Here's a question for you. As nations develop over the next 25 years, the world will have almost twice as many cars. How much fuel will be needed to power them? About the same as today? 50% more? 100% more? The answer is about the same as today. By 2040, advances in fuels and vehicles could enable about 75% better fuel economy than today. Take the energy quiz, round 2. Energy lives here.
According to numerous studies, including our own, the world's population is expected to grow from 7 billion people today to over 9 billion in 2040. That's an overall increase of 25%. Most of that population growth will be concentrated in India and some of the other developing nations. Growth in China and the rest of the world is expected to remain relatively modest in their growth. So hand in hand with population growth come increased demands for energy. Economic growth and improved living standards it enables will require more energy. Overall, gross domestic product, or GDP, is expected to grow an average of 2.8% per year between 2010 and 2040. However, in addition to rapidly expanding populations, the economies of developing or non-OECD countries will also continue to increase significantly. Now, OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, was established in 1961 to stimulate economic progress and world trade, and differentiates between developed and developing countries on the basis of economic indicators and living standards. Developing or non-OECD countries, shown in red, contributed slightly more than 50% of this growth. China alone will contribute over 20% of the global economic growth, as its economy is expected to grow over 5% per year to the year 2040. India, whose economy is currently only about a third that of China, grows at a similar rate on average, and increasingly be important as a nation for further growth in the decades ahead. Economic growth in developed or OECD countries, shown in blue, would be led by the United States, which will contribute roughly 20% of the growth in the global economy. So again, hand in hand with economic growth come increased demands for energy. Now, the good news is the greatest source of future energy is continuing to use it more efficiently. In 2040, global energy demand will be approximately 700 quadrillion BTUs. That's an increase of 35% from 2010. This is equivalent to adding the current energy demands of Russia, India, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East combined. Global energy demand increases over time, but not as dramatically due to GDP, as dramatically as GDP due to declining energy intensity. This is the amount of energy used to produce a unit of GDP output. The declining energy intensity is reflective of a couple factors. First, the world's economic structure changes over time. As many maturing economies move from being energy intensive in manufacturing to more of a service-based economy, their energy use per GDP decreases. Second, and this is more important, energy efficiency will improve across all energy sectors and in all countries. This combines to drastically slow the energy demand in comparison to gains in economic growth and living standards. So that's good news for all of us. The energy mix will continue to evolve. In our growing and more prosperous world, we will need a diverse energy mix. This bar chart is our projection of the types of energies the world will use in 2040 compared to what was used in 2010. Each bar represents a global energy demand by type in quadrillion BTUs per year. Oil remains the single largest source of energy because of its use in transportation fuels like cars and airplanes. Its use will grow around 25% between now and 2040. The combination of oil, natural gas, and coal will provide approximately 80% of the total energy supplies in 2040. The most significant shift occurs as natural gas displaces coal as the second largest fuel by 2025. Natural gas will grow faster than any of the other major fuels, with demand up 65% by 2040, primarily for power generation as electricity. Coal is likely to end up in 2040 roughly where it is today. Nuclear grows significantly along with biomass and remains an important part of the overall energy mix. Wind, solar, biofuels grow rapidly, with 2040 demand more than 5 times what it is in 2010. Still, its contribution will only be about 3 to 4% of the total energy supplies to the world. As I mentioned just a moment ago, natural gas plays an increasingly important role in supporting the quality of life, the manufacturing industry, and the economy. A few interesting facts about natural gas usage in the U.S. More than 60 million homes are heated by natural gas. 54% of all new homes use natural gas for heating, and 25% of the total energy consumed in the United States is natural gas. There are two unrelated enablers for growth of natural gas that are driving its attractiveness as a primary fuel. The first is natural abundance. The availability of large gas resources in tight, low permeability rock that can be economically produced at commercial rates. And second, transportation. The availability of long-distance liquefied natural gas, or LNG, carrier ships that can economically ferry commercial quantities to faraway markets. Previously, transport was dependent on extensive pipeline systems or small regional LNG carriers in proximity to large manufacturing centers or power generation plants. The story of natural gas in the U.S. is really one of a decade makes a difference. In 2000, shale gas represented just 1% of the American natural gas resource. Today, it is 30% and rising quickly. Innovation, new technology paved the way to unlock the potential of natural gas in only a few short years. Natural gas plays a key role in providing four key sectors as shown in this chart. Gas is the fastest growing major fuel, with overall world demand increasing by 60% by 2040. However, the largest sector for growth worldwide is expected to be electricity generation, with an 80% increase in natural gas use by 2040. In many respects, natural gas is already viewed or becoming the energy of the future. Natural gas is abundant, with over 100 years of accessible natural resources in the U.S. Natural gas creates jobs, generates revenue for local, school, city, and county taxing authorities. Natural gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel, having 30% less carbon than oil, 45% less carbon than coal, 60% less carbon dioxide emissions than coal for power generation, and fewer waste products such as mercury, sulfur, and nitrogen oxide. Natural gas is versatile as it is competitive in a variety of energy markets. But before we continue, let's conduct another quiz.
Here's a question for you. When electricity is generated with natural gas instead of today's most used source, how much are CO2 emissions reduced? Up to 30%? 45%? 60%? The answer is up to 60% less. And that's a big reason why the U.S. is a world leader in reducing CO2 emissions. Take the energy quiz, round 2. Energy lives here.
Now that we've discussed the benefits of natural gas, let's briefly walk through the process of how natural gas is developed from shale rock. We'll find that more that people understand about the facts regarding safe and responsible production of shale gas, the more they support it. In the broadest sense, gas and oil resources are more difficult to extract because they're found in subsurface formations that have much lower porosity and permeability. Recent growth in shale gas production and natural gas supplies result from a combination of technologies that together enable unlocking these otherwise very difficult natural gas resources. There's really 4 key stages to development. It begins with drilling a well using sound well construction standards. Next, hydraulic fracturing is used to stimulate the shale reservoir in order to release the gas molecules. Once on production, the gas then flows through the well and into the flow lines and onto surface facilities. Next, the production streams of gas and liquids are separated, treated, and compressed for long-distance transport by interstate pipelines, where it finds its way to utilities and eventually shipped to your home. Today, we'll focus primarily on stages 1 and 2 of the process, but we'll first talk a bit about responsible operatorship. Our operations are a collaborative effort of landowners, mineral right owners, regulators, and communities. Our success is listed to the success of the communities in which we do business. We're committed to being a good neighbor and a corporate citizen. At ExxonMobil and our subsidiary XTO Energy, our philosophy for natural gas development is centered on 4 key principles. First, we believe it is important to utilize the best management practice across all locations. This helps ensure our operations continue to increase efficiencies while reducing our overall environmental footprint. Second, we believe it is important to protect groundwater resources through sound wellbore construction and by minimizing fresh water use through water treatment and recycling of produced water. Third, we're committed to working with communities to minimize the potential impacts by working closely with local governments and community leaders. Last, we promote transparency and reasonable regulations by participating in the U.S. Groundwater Protection Council's frac-focused chemical registry. By adhering to these 4 principles, we believe we can develop natural gas resources in a safe and responsible way. Horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing are technologies that have been used for decades by operators to develop a variety of types of assets, ranging from conventional oil and gas to heavy oil to tight carbonates. Only in the last decade or so have these methods been applied successfully to unconventional resources such as shale.
Hydraulic fracturing is a time-tested, proven technology. It's been used in more than 1 million wells worldwide for the past 6 decades. This is how it works. First, once the necessary infrastructure is in place, a drilling rig is assembled and inspected in accordance with the required safety and environmental standards. Only once we are satisfied that all the required standards have been met can drilling begin. When the well is drilled, multiple layers of cement and steel casing are inserted to create an impermeable barrier between the well and the groundwater. The well is drilled vertically until it nears the shale zone. Just prior to the shale zone, the well turns and horizontal drilling begins. The Empire State Building extends 1,453 feet from base to tip. The depth of a well can be over 8 Empire State Buildings. After another cement casing is put in place to ensure maximum system integrity, a perforating device is inserted to create small holes in the casing and the rock. Then, fluids comprised predominantly of water and sand are pumped down into the wellbore, creating tiny hairline fractures. Gas trapped in the shale zone is released within the tiny hairline fractures and safely brought up the wellbore and to the surface. America has vast amounts of natural gas, which can provide a cleaner burning source of energy for more than 100 years. Technology is making it possible to safely and responsibly unlock this energy endowment.
The subsurface is filled with all kinds of technical challenges that require detailed insights and technical understanding. Fundamental to our business as operators are the complex physics of drilling, that is, creating the usable borehole; stimulation, that is, enhancing the connectivity of the well to the reservoir rock face; completions, providing a conduit from the subsurface reservoir to the surface; production, managing the flow of reservoir fluids through the well, through the treating facilities and piping systems; waste disposal, the safe reinjection of untreatable fluids back into subsurface domains. As we'll discuss more shortly, 3D simulation powers innovative solutions. ExxonMobil has a long-standing business relationship with SIMULIA and the development and application of Abacus finite element code for simulation. In fact, we were the first licensee of Abacus in the energy sector back in the late 1970s. Some of you may recall that 5 years ago, I spoke at this very same forum in Providence, Rhode Island, about 3 decades of collaboration in developing advanced simulation technologies in the upstream oil and gas industry. Shortly after that 2010 SCC, we elected to once again embark on a collaborative initiative to address the technical challenges previously described. The ExxonMobil collaborative partnership focused on developing advanced finite element methods and advanced constitutive models. for this new set of technical problems in the subsurface. The objective was to create advanced modeling capabilities for fluid-driven fractures with particle transport and orthotropic plasticity in poroelastic materials. The scope of the collaborative initiative was to, 1, develop enhanced full physics computational capabilities for fluid-driven fractures. 2, validate their predictive capabilities in a variety of ways. 3, integrate them into efficient workflows. And 4, to address applications related to upstream oil and gas applications and challenges. Accurate physical modeling of fluid-driven fractures with particle transport required a multifaceted approach to address the widely varying time and length scales common to drilling, stimulation, completion, production, and injection applications. The work included new fundamental solver capabilities and element types for reconciling the complex interactions between fractures, fluids, and particles, and new co-stimulation enhancements for managing the coupling between different solvers and solutions. In essence, the approach involved leveraging existing computational mechanics capabilities in Abacus while integrating fundamental advancements in science and engineering. The newly developed simulation capabilities were validated by classical semi-analytical solutions, complex physical experiments, and extensive field experience. A multi-level approach to validation was conducted. Semi-analytical solutions were simulated with the objective of confirming that the fundamental physics are correctly and accurately captured over a wide range of rock and fluid properties. The validation was carried out over a parametric space for 4 limiting propagation regimes, either toughness or viscous-dominated fractures, both with and without leak-off. In these validation cases, all input and solution variables are known. Large-scale experiments were simulated with the objective of establishing confidence that the physical behavior can be modeled without calibration using a uniquely designed, configured, and operated polyaxial test cell for these same 4 propagation regimes. You'll notice the videos here illustrating the equipment on the left and the simulation of the experiment itself on the right. In these validation cases, most of the input variables are controlled, measured, and the output variables also measured. Field data and operations experience were simulated with the objective of testing the scalability of the models and their capabilities for real business applications. In these validation cases, more limited input data are measured and controlled, and similarly limited output are measured. Nonetheless, we've seen very good agreement in practice. So let's take a look at some of the applications of these new modeling capabilities. This is the first of several examples illustrating the use of these new technical capabilities for modeling fluid-driven fractures with particle transport and orthotropic plasticity in poroelastic media. Maintaining drilling borehole integrity is essential to the well construction process, particularly in extended reach and horizontal wells, such as shown here in our Sakhalin operations in Russia. A key incentive is avoiding and managing the multiple drilling failure limit states, either lost returns in sands resulting in fractures, or instability in shale resulting in collapse of the borehole. 3D simulation of borehole instability and lost returns, innovative drilling fluid formulations that mitigate collapse and seal fractures. Sustaining water injection into unconsolidated reservoirs is central to the oil recovery process, particularly in deep water reservoirs. A key incentive is recognizing and designing for competing fluid loss mechanisms, either matrix flows in weak, highly permeable sands, resulting in shear failure, or linear flows in strong, low permeability sands, resulting in fractures. In the figures shown here, you'll note the differences in the pressure fields and resulting fracture geometries due to the competing leak-off mechanisms. 3D simulation of complex matrix linear flows and fracture growth powers innovative water injection well designs that are highly conductive in providing reservoir pressure support. Conducting multi-zone stimulation of unconventional reservoirs is central to the economics and the recovery process, particularly in shale gas developments. A key incentive is maximizing the efficiency and effectiveness of field operations to achieve sufficient production rate and resource drainage, either from treatment of spacing within a well or resource spacing between wells. So in the figures that you see here, note the differences in the resulting fracture lengths and curvatures for identical stimulation treatments conducted either sequentially or for alternating for 3 consecutive zones in a single well. 3D simulation of stress, fracture, and flow fields powers innovative recovery schemes and stimulation treatments that are highly productive by minimizing drainage interference. Conducting drilling, cuttings, injection disposal is central to the waste management process, particularly in offshore locations. A key incentive is selecting the subsurface domains and the operations parameters to mitigate any environmental impact. In the figures shown here, note the close agreement between the predicted and recorded surface injection pressures over time for both pumping and shutdown operations. 3D simulation of stress profile, fracture growth, and particle transport powers innovative injection disposal options that robustly assure safe placement and containment in the subsurface. Preventing the reactivation of geologic faults is central to the overall asset integrity management process, particularly in populated areas. A key incentive is identifying and managing controllable depletion factors to mitigate damage to wells, pipelines, and other asset infrastructure, in addition to mitigating any environmental impact. In the figures shown here, note the uncharacteristic gridding of the finite element meshes to capture the irregular geometry of formation lithology and geologic faults. 3D simulation of the stress fields on geologic faults powers innovative reservoir depletion and surveillance plans that manage the hazards and risks of fault movements in the subsurface. A total of 4 technical papers are being presented at this conference to highlight the depth and breadth of the ExxonMobil SIMULIA collaborative partnership that I spoke of earlier. I urge you to consider reading these excellent papers, or better yet, attending the presentations later today. I'm sure the authors are excited to present their findings, share their learnings, and answer your questions. But before we continue, let's conduct one last energy quiz.
Here's a question for you. By avoiding rapid acceleration and stop-and-go driving, your savings on gas could be equivalent to how much? Up to 50 cents a gallon? 75 cents? $1? The answer is up to $1 a gallon. Sensible driving avoids unnecessary energy loss, saving you money and reducing CO2 emissions. Take the energy quiz, round 2. Energy lives here.
Simply stated, our world runs on energy, and it's a global market. Natural gas is abundant. The International Energy Agency estimates there are about 28,000 trillion cubic feet of remaining gas resource across the globe. Experts believe that this is enough natural gas to meet current demand levels for more than 200 years. Globally, gas from unconventional rocks makes up about 40% of the estimated remaining worldwide gas resources. However, it may take some time to understand the specific geology and technology required to economically produce unconventional resources in other parts of the world, and to develop the infrastructure to move the gas to market. Substantial oil resources remain as well. The IEA estimates total recoverable oil of 4,300 billion barrels. Remarkably, these estimates have increased over time. The global cumulative production to date is approximately 1,200 billion barrels of oil, leaving almost 80% of the resource yet to be discovered and developed. North America, Latin America, the Russian Caspian, and the Middle East are the largest resource holders. The large North American and Latin American resources contain sufficient oil sands, mainly in Canada and Venezuela. These sands can be recovered through mining and in situ operations. The Russian Caspian and the Middle East regions have large conventional oil resources remaining in excess of 1,000 billion barrels of oil recoverable. In all of this, governments play an important role. The path to energy security lies in open, competitive markets, international trade, diversity of supply, and the strengthening of relationships between producing and consuming nations. The value of such an interconnected marketplace is that energy security is enhanced when there's more participants, better relationships, and much more diverse supplies. The projects our industry undertakes span decades, required huge investments, and utilize cutting-edge technologies that evolve throughout the project life cycles. Long-term planning is critical. That is, planning that looks beyond the current business cycle, relies on stable frameworks, and goes beyond political term limits. Maintaining stable fiscal and regulatory environments and allowing access to resources are crucial to future energy security for the world. They're vital for the industry that's highly capital intensive and operates over long time horizons. Our industry has proven time and time and again it will accept risks, even for projects that require massive investment, if measures are taken in place to allow us to operate effectively and resolve issues fairly. The tremendous energy infrastructure that exists today successfully moves oil and gas around the world, and that's proof that the industry can make very large and prudent investments when it perceives long-term value and a reliable level of stability. Now a few words about ExxonMobil. We have a presence on 6 continents and operations in 47 countries. Between 2013 and 2017, we plan to bring on 28 major projects, and they're expected to deliver 1 million net oil equivalent barrels per day. That's approximately equal to a quarter of our current daily production. Our ExxonMobil's contribution to the world's energy needs to be put into perspective. ExxonMobil produces less than 2%, or a little more than 4 million oil equivalent barrels of the world's daily energy production. And only 3%, or roughly 2.5 million of the 82 million barrels of oil consumed each day. And only 9% of the world's gasoline do we produce. ExxonMobil plans to invest roughly $190 billion. That's $190 billion over the next 5 years to develop new supplies of energy and to further improve and expand our resources, facilities, and operations. We're committed to sustaining investments in our current portfolio of development projects around the world to meet the growing global energy needs. ExxonMobil recently relocated its North American operations for upstream, downstream, and chemicals to a new spectacular campus. The new ExxonMobil campus is situated on 385 wooded acres, and it's located approximately 25 miles north of downtown Houston in the city of Spring, Texas. It's now home to over 10,000 employees and contractors. It is a model campus for business collaboration and technology innovation. Please consider visiting us there if you're in the U.S. I have to say with some assurance that our employees and contractors make all the difference. None of these challenges could be met, however, without the quality people, the creativity and skill of our engineers, geologists, and scientists to provide innovation. ExxonMobil continues to invest in the people who make it possible for our company to be successful. We provide them with the tools, training, and corporate cultures that enable innovation to flourish. We recognize those who innovate, encouraging the development of new ideas and new ways of working. We support young people who want to work in our industry, developing the next generation, promoting the study of math and science in schools at all grade levels. In 2012 alone, we directed more than $116 million to education initiatives around the world. 38 million of that was directed in math and science education in the United States, with a focus on teacher development, teacher training, and inspiring children and youth to pursue these critical subjects. So I'd like to stress 3 final subjects. All countries compete in a global energy market, and demand continues to grow as developing countries improve their standards of living. ExxonMobil is a large company. However, we play a relatively small but important role in the energy business. We will continue to be a leader in providing reliable, affordable supplies of energy to the world, and we'll do so in a safe, secure, and environmentally responsible way. Energy enables everyday life, but sometimes there's more to energy than meets the eye.
You don't need to think about the energy that makes our lives possible. Because we do. We're ExxonMobil. And powering the world responsibly is our job. Because boiling an egg isn't as simple as just boiling an egg. Life takes energy. Energy lives here.
In closing, I wish to thank the management teams of ExxonMobil and SIMULIA for the opportunity to speak with this group today, and for the support of the collaborative partnership to address these key technical challenges in the subsurface. I hope that you'll agree with me that 3D simulation powers innovative solutions by building on the fundamentals to deliver energy in the 21st century. At ExxonMobil, energy lives here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I really appreciate that, and here's a small gift for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It really is an honor to work with companies like ExxonMobil and Airbus, and a lot of you in the audience, and also with the partners to advance science and technology and engineering. And we really appreciate that in R&D. One thing I would just add is that when you see a lot of these capabilities, like what Bruce was showing, we take a lot of care to try and make these as generic as possible. So although you see them in the context of this particular industry, a lot of the basic mechanics, functionality, and physics can be used in a lot of other industries. And I think that's the one thing we've always focused on over many years of development in Abacus technology. So there's going to be a lot of exciting new capabilities. We'll talk more about that later today and tomorrow that you'll be able to use.